one?
You can go. Vote on it.
We actually don't have any voting.
Okay.
Because the voice is going into executive session. It's going to be a voice vote, or is that a?
Typically, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have it set up as a computer vote.
Okay.
So I don't think we're holding anything up. Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the December 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. It is currently 3:04 p.m., and I'm going to call this meeting to order. We will take our moment of silence and do the Pledge of Allegiance at the 6 o'clock hour when we start the regular meeting. So the meeting is in order. Our first item of business is an expulsion diversion plan for student A. May I please have a motion to enter executive session?
Second.
Who moved? Mr. Kisner moved. Zigray was second. Okay, this will be a voice vote. Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Hobatter, we'll start with you.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
5-0 at 3:05 p.m.
Okay. We're
Good to go.
I think it's not updating to the. Okay.
Got it?
Okay. We are currently in closed session, so can I get a motion to re-enter open session?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Hovatter. This will be a voice vote starting with Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Okay, 5-0. We are now in
4:08.
open session at 4:08. Okay, our first matter of business is expulsion diversion plan for student A. This is an action, discussion, information item. It's recommended that the board approve the expulsion plan for student A with the additions of adding step 8, requirement of administration to reassess students standing at the end of school year in May 2025 and determine eligibility for re-entry in the fall school year.
Okay.
And family has 48 hours to accept the agreement if approved by the board. I didn't write that one down. So requirement for reassessment at the end of the school year, and family has 48 hours to accept agreement if approved.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Okay, is there any discussion regarding the motion that's been made and seconded? Okay, hearing none, I call the vote.
Bear with me, guys.
That's fine.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is expulsion diversion plan for student B. And remember, we're in open session. Do we want to proceed at this time, or do we want to wait till 4:30?
The family's here.
Okay. Do we want to proceed?
You might have Lucas and
You're in open
his aunt.
session too.
Right, so you might have Lucas and his aunt. I'm speaking with Ms. Olchek.
Okay.
Just about the change.
Yeah, Ms. Zofchek, if you
Might
could
give
take
her
the
a call.
family. Do you want my copy that we just made those two additions?
That would be great, thank you.
Okay, they're scribbling. But basically, administration, you guys are required to reassess the student at the end of the school year for reentry in the fall.
Okay.
And then the family has 48 hours.
Okay.
Okay.
Maybe if we get an email or something, we can email a clean copy of that to
Okay,
them.
thank you.
Should we do it? I'm at recess and then straight into executive session for hers, and she needs to come.
It
too,
shouldn't take
or-
very long, honestly.
Okay.
You could go ahead and get into closed session, we can get set up over there.
Okay. Okay, can I have a Okay, so we're under,
I move we go into executive session for sole expulsion hearing student B.
okay, we have a motion for executive session by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Hovatter. Okay, this will be a verbal vote. Okay, we'll start with you, Mr. Hovatter.
Yes.
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 412.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. Kisner, seconded by Mr. Zigray, that we return to open session. This will be a voice vote, starting with Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
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 And it's 511.
Okay, live stream's on. Okay, so our item of business is approving the recommendation of the board to approve the expulsion plan for student B with, there's one addition, Mr. Martin, step 8, for an evaluation by the administration at the end of May of 2025 to determine placement for September 2025. Okay, can I get a motion to accept the recommendation?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Okay, second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any discussion regarding the motion? Okay, hearing none, I call the vote.
That was Kisner Hovatter, right?
Kisner, Hovatter.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, I move that we recess until 6 o'clock.
Second.
It was seconded by Mr. Kisner. Is there any discussion on the motion to recess until 6 o'clock? Okay, this will be a voice vote, starting with Mr. Hovatter.
Yes.
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 512. Stream off. My audio files will be messed
The
up.
December 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Preston County Board of Education. This meeting was called to order at about 3 o'clock today for student discipline hearings. At about 5:12, we went into recess until 6 o'clock. It is now 6 o'clock, and this meeting is in order. We will start with a moment of silence, and then the Vice President, Mr. Kisner, will lead us to the Pledge of Allegiance, which the flag is located over there.
You'll stand.
You guys may want to walk down.
I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we will start with approving the agenda. It is recommended that the board approve the meeting agenda.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there discussion amongst the board about the items on the agenda or the order? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, so for the public on the screen here, you can see the votes, each member's giving their vote total. Okay, next on the agenda is recognitions, but there's none scheduled for this meeting. So we will move then to delegations. Okay, this is the citizen input portion of our meeting. First on the list is Sean Ball.
I'd like to discuss specific staff and/or students.
I move we go into executive session for the purposes of discussion regarding, or purpose of hearing, professional staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion for executive session by Mr. Kisner and a second by Mr. Zigray for executive session. Is there any discussion? Okay, not hearing any. This will be a voice vote for executive session, starting with Mr. Hovatter.
Yes.
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 Motion passes at 6:03.
Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any discussion about the motion to return to open session? Okay, hearing none, I call the vote. We'll start with Mrs. Miller.
Yes.
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 5-0 at 6:39.
Okay, next on our delegations list is Tim Weaver. Dr. Weaver, you can use the mic. Okay, you have 5 minutes. Please don't mention any employee names or student names. I will not. Thank you. Okay, can you take time?
Before I start, I have some handouts for the board. I'll start on this end, and we'll start on the other end. Please look at them and pass each one along as you look at it, and they will all then end up in the president's hands. I was unable to present this information at our last meeting. So I want to thank you, by the way, 2 people sent me information today regarding plans for the closure of the school and transportation alternatives. So thank you. I find the plan, as it stands now, unworkable for many parents. Parents who do not choose to send their children on a bus to Aurora. The plan allows for Roseburg area parents to apply annually to transfer children to the Kingwood Elementary and Central Preston Middle Schools. Those parents, unfortunately, are not guaranteed placement. They may apply, but they may not be able to send their children. They still may be compelled to have their children bused up Cheat Mountain to Aurora, even if they find that unacceptable. The only acceptable plan to the majority of the people in this community is to make the Kingwood schools, Kingwood Elementary, Kingwood Middle School, Preston Middle School, Central Preston, receiving schools, as well as Aurora. And the reason is that if a child from Roseburg is attending Kingwood Elementary School and a new family moves to Kingwood with a child in the same grade, then there's something like the old railroad bumping system. That child from Kingwood can bump a Roseburg student because they don't want to create another classroom or hire another teacher. So in the middle of the school year, a Roseburg child may be told, you're no longer attending school in Kingwood, you are going to Aurora. That is not acceptable. I have some questions. There's some open-ended questions I'd like for the board to address in your discussions here tonight. What is the alternative route for busing Roseburg area children to and from Aurora in case Cheat Mountain is closed, as it was on November 6th for 8 hours? What is the plan? Second, what is the plan to to pick up Rollsburg kids if they're stuck on Cheat Mountain due to an accident or a bus that's gone into the ditch and cannot get out? What is the plan to pick them up and get them home? Thirdly, will there be space available in Kingwood Elementary and Preston Middle Schools next year for 35 children whose parents apply for an intra-county transfer? And question number 4, have you informed the parents under your current plan that their child may be returned to the sending school anytime a Kingwood District child wants to attend Kingwood Elementary School? I think these parents need to be adequately informed that that is the case. And that is in your school transfer form.
1 minute.
That has not been crossed off, and it's clearly part of the policy. I pointed out by email, statements to the board, face-to-face meetings, that Cheat Mountain is risky and dangerous. It has a history of wrecks, often blocking traffic for hours. This choice for a regular bus route is dangerous. I've shown you 10 pictures of accidents on Cheat Mountain between 2003 and the last one, November 6, 2024. Now, that doesn't mean there weren't more accidents. Those just happened to be the accidents that were photographed. There were dozens more accidents for which we don't have photographs. Should you go ahead with this plan, this letter and its contents place you individually and collectively on notice of your liability in case of an accident involving a school bus or hours-long delays due to wrecks. Thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver.
Thank you, Dr. Weaver.
Can you send them a written response? You want to answer questions or you?
Well, currently, we don't have the Roseburg School on the agenda, so we can't have board discussion, Mr. Martin. But if you would like to send a written response to Dr. Weaver and copy board members
Sure.
of that, that would be.
Dr. Weaver, just to clarify, in terms of what would be the alternative path of transport if the Cheat Mountain is not available? Plan to get kids in case of emergency if there's a hang up on the mountain. Will there be room at Central Preston and Kingwood, and will parents be availed, or will parents be notified of the fact that there could be movement of the students back to the home school if there's not sufficient space, correct? Those are the 4 things.
What I said was accurate.
Yep. Okay. He's
What's that?
clarifying your questions.
I'll respond to all those in writing with the board members, sir.
Okay. Okay. Next on our agenda is, let me jump up here, is we have presentations, starting with the Fellowsville Elementary School LSIC and curriculum team presentations. Thank you, Mr.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to welcome you to Rollsburg School. You should have a copy of our report in front of you. If not, I can provide those.
I think we have.
Mr. Smith, if you want, I have them in a packet, but if you've got a couple handed up. Thank you, sir.
The middle button just mutes it.
So if you would, number 1 and number 2, I'm just here to list for you our team members and our meeting dates and see if you have any questions about that, and that I have other members of the LSIC who are going to present.
I think we're good.
Next up is Miss Mary Ann Plum.
All right, guys. Oh, sorry. I'm on question number 3. It says describe the learning environment in your school and what suggestions do you have to improve it? The answers that we came up with were teachers who are passionate and committed to student success and providing individual attention when needed. Well-structured curriculum with learning objectives in place. We use flexible seating and dedicated collaboration spaces. We have a positive classroom culture and student-centered learning and differentiated instruction, of course. We have parent and community involvement. After returning to school from the COVID, of course, we had a decrease in parent involvement, and our CEOs and things weren't in the building as much. Now we're getting back to where we had been before COVID, with a lot more intensive community people, or more time of them being in the schools, in our school, and listening to children read, or working maybe with math or something like that. So we have a lot of that goes on within our classrooms as well. Number 4, how do you view the academic progress that children at your school are making? And assess GSA, SAT, or iReady, those results. So we do use our iReady and do progress monitoring and things with our iReady. We can go in and set up our own little progress monitorings for if we were doing a specific standard and we want to see how the kids did, we can actually go in and put those in and monitor that ourselves. Plus, there's also the county's set up for progress monitoring as well as 3 times a year. We are doing the RCD units. RCD units are provided by Ms. Katie McDonald and our coaches. They put in the standards that really need to be focused on for each grading period. So we follow those, of course, but that doesn't mean those are the only ones that we cover. We still cover all of our other standards. But that's what the RCD units are. It's step by step. It's really good. It's really easy, at least for me, to follow and get the resources that they have right online. It's wonderful. Of course, the GSA scores, we use those a lot towards the beginning of the year, from the last scores to see how they did previously, of course, and where to place them and how to group and what skills are lacking and what needs to be retaught. Amira is working well for our older students, but I do have to say that in kindergarten, a lot of them get frustrated because the Amira has them sound out words and read sentences, and some kindergartners at this point in time are not ready for that. They're just learning how to blend sounds together, and it's not enough time on the Amira. It's timed, gives them the time, and they have to do that. So kindergarten, and we discussed this in our collaborations, kindergarten collaboration meetings, countywide, that possibly next year we're hoping that they'll consider starting Amira during the 2nd semester of school instead of this 1st semester. I'll go on down here. Student data and progress are studied by team members during PLC and curriculum team meetings to adjust instruction as needed to help students to achieve their learning goals. The MTSS process is also used in certain circumstances when more intensive instruction and intervention is needed for individual students. And that process is used when we're still struggling, like if it's going into tier. Do you understand what tiers are? The
We do.
tiers. Okay. So tier 1 is just over. Tier 2, this kid is missing this skill, but this kid doesn't. So we're tier 2, we break them up into skills. Tier 3 is if they're not making progress and that kid really needs some extra focus. And usually during that time is when we would start what used to be called SAT process. It's no longer, everything changes, new initials are made for everything. But we do that, and we have several in place. And even though we have several in place that we're working on, doesn't mean that that child will be referred for special education. In fact, it's to keep them maybe from ending up in that process. If we can focus on them and center on them. I'm assuming you guys have one of these, and it shows you our math benchmark results in that section. How many is that supposed to be?
5 and 6.
All right. Number 5, what new academic processes or changes would the curriculum team like to see implemented at the school to improve student engagement? We have time to develop an expertise with new initiatives curriculum that is currently in place. So just time to look over all those RCD units. And I do like when we have those extra days to work on the extra time for the report card time, because we also use that time to go over what's coming next. Look at our units and things. So at least in our school, it's not wasted.
We're trying to also designate some time in the afternoon if we have any brain freeze days. That slot from 11 or from 1 to 3 can also be used for those purposes.
That sounds good. Because we do use that. We use that. In the upper grades, of course, more student-led discussions. And my grade, if you let them have too much freedom, we're talking about developing their facts and the hamsters, and the cat ate the hamster, and the poor dog, got sick on mommy's bed or what. We won't, that goes a little too far. We would like opportunity for more collaborative group work, more opportunities for student choice, encouraging more inquiry-based learning. Number 6, what steps are being carried out at the school level to combat student attendance issues? Of course, we have communication with parents and guardians, but we also have an attendance store as an incentive. If you've been at school every day, the following Monday, the teachers get a slip of who had perfect attendance for the previous week. They go down, they get to pick some kind of little toy. I'm not gonna say junk, but they think it's wonderful. So they get that once a week. Then we have, well, of course, and if not, if it's 3 unexcused, just the regular process of sending home those letters and parent contact when they're absent. We also are CEO ladies. Do you know what CEO? Okay. They are going to pick up where Roriton had kind of left off with Mr. Post, and they're going to, at our awards, we're having a little small awards day Wednesday? Yes. Wednesday. And they're going to give out prize money for those with faithful and perfect attendance so far through the year. And our Roriton Club had been doing that previously. So that is something that the kids really like, because it's cash money. Do you have any questions on anything that I've gone over?
I think we're good.
Okay.
Hi guys, I'm Angel Yunker, and I'm going to talk about what we have known 7 and 8. And the first one is, how is the school working to provide meaningful responses to students' behavior and issues? Each of our classrooms has their own PBIS plan in place. It's taken we offer support to students. You're not just in trouble, you know, we speak to them, they know what happened and why and what needs to be fixed. And teaching alternative behaviors, you know, we give them the techniques that they need to address those behaviors and what they should be doing instead of what they did do. And sometimes we have to reach out a little bit further with parents and I'll make sure everybody's involved. We know that, you know, sometimes they just get a little bit too much energy, so we've looked into some of that and we have some new plans in place for that, where we can take them out and they can get some of that energy out. And then number 8, we have describe how your school is providing support for at-risk students. We have the ASE after-school program, and all students that are at risk can come to that and get tutoring and extra help. We have the Tier 2 and Tier 3 programs are being done with at-risk students. We keep communication among all stakeholders concerning at-risk students. And we have the CEOs who come in and tutor the kids.
Thank you.
Of course,
Good evening, my name is Cherry Sigley. I'm the pre-K teacher at Bellisville, and I'm going to be speaking to you about the curricular offerings or resources that we need to drive improvement. First of all, continuing the MTSS trainings, helping understanding the process, relaying it to parents. A lot of times when we mention things, sometimes parents don't really understand, and it's hard to explain it in a way that they understand sometimes. So training to help with that would be very helpful.
Jerry,
Also,
just 1 second. The MTSS board members is multi-tiered system of support. I know sometimes all these acronyms. Thank you, Jerry.
Also, with the new curriculum initiatives, teachers would appreciate time to develop expertise with them instead of changing new programs and not allowing sufficient time for them to develop the methods and practices. A lot of times, we just start getting the hang of something and it gets changed, or they add something to it that makes it a little more difficult to understand. So a lot of the teachers feel that it would be best if we were able to get some extra time to work on those things. Also, what major areas did the LSSC address or plan to address? So we addressed increasing student proficiency in ELA and math. One of the methods that we have discussed on doing that is bringing the CEOs to listen to the students read and to work on math facts. There was a whole initiative last year with that, of where the kids were practicing math facts and they would get a reward when they mastered facts. So, for example, adding to 5, they would get an award for that, and I believe it was like a 50-cent coin. So they would get an award and they would get that recognition when they accomplish those goals. Also, encouraging support amongst all stakeholders and ensuring that Bellisville continues to exist in the distant future. You know, we all know what the decision was. However, we continue to encourage the community to support the students regardless of what the outcome is. And so that's what I have. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Klein, now community member, former assistant to Mrs. Plum, and I am presenting the community, the partners and the examples of how they help the school. We've heard this, I don't know how many times, but the CEOs, they are a huge help in the community, or for the, not only in the community, but for the school. But they have an outreach in the classrooms already. They donate a lot of classroom supplies at the beginning of the year. They give the teachers baskets of school supplies, a lot of things that they need for bulletin boards and just in general school supplies for the teachers. And they provide best of all lunch the beginning day of when the teachers come back, which is wonderful. Chuck's store donates school supplies and pizzas for school incentives for the students, and they also help with supplies for school events. Fellows-ville Volunteer Fire Department, they provide a school day for the students. They come in and they show them the fire trucks, and they also have a presentation of fire prevention, and they also bring in kind of like a care package for them, a gift package for them. And they also allow some of the teachers to dress up in the equipment, which the kids really love. And they crawl around on the floor and stuff. So that's a fun day for the kids. Jennings Excavating, they do monetary donations and equipments and service donations. The Fellows-ville Volunteer Fire Department, they also allow us to use their building whenever we need for have meetings also. The equipment and services donated for different things that we need on the playground and for school days, and they come help us with parades and things like that. They've donated some of their trucks to let us use for floats. The Sandhill Company, they've also donated their equipment for the parades also, and monetary donations. Lear Mining, monetary donations, and they sponsor the student incentive events. Meadowview Farms, they've donated, give donations of a hog for the raffles for fundraiser for the schools, and they also provide classroom supplies. The Rortons Club, they give monetary donations and donations for classroom supplies. They do attendance incentives for the kids. They'll give, if the kids come, so I'm assuming they still do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. They would give the kids that have the best attendance, they would have contests for them, and they would also they would attend on the presentation days, which was really nice for them to do that, because that way the kids got to know some of the Rorton members, which was nice. Oh yes, they also gave, you know, the books that they have with their name in them that you can personalize. The Rortons gave the kindergartners books with their names in them every year, so that was also that was fun for them. And WW Service Center provides assistance for the Santa's Workshop, and Woodford gives monetary donations, and also Crystal's buildings, and CNS Construction. When you were at our school, we have a wall in front with a flower bed. They did all the service. They built that wall in front of that school. So they've done other donations. A lot of parent involvement, as you saw when we were at the meetings. We have a lot of community support, and the Santa's Workshop is one that is huge, and the kids at all schools love Santa workshops. But that's the 9th through the 13th. Come by and you can buy somebody, and for the school, you can buy your own gift for somebody. You know, you can do that. It's open to anybody, and you can have it wrapped. Those who don't, you know, somebody will wrap it for you. The parents come and wrap the kids' gifts so that, of course, nobody knows what they all end up not telling anybody, of course, when they get home what gifts are in those packages. But they have a lot of, we have a lot of family support for those. Or the parents come in and they also donate a lot for that and for the Santa's workshop. The STEM night is a big thing for volunteers. They usually set up about 12 tables for that, and parents come in and help with that. I think once in a while they have the academy come in and help. The Challenge Academy, they have had in the past come and do that. And we always have classroom volunteers, parents wanting to come in and help with anything that they can do. They have a school decoration, the holiday door decoration. That's always a big thing. And Facebook, get on Facebook and vote on the best door, because that's always a fun contest for everyone. The open house is usually the PTO will assist with that, and they have parent engagement programs that the parents assist with. The PTO sponsors will sponsor the field trips. The egg drop, Mrs. Phillips usually gets, okay, don't tell anybody, but she gets up on the roof and she drops eggs from the roof. So that's not a safety issue, because she puts the harness on and everything. Yeah. Okay. And she drops the eggs. So the kids love that, and so do we. The Halloween parade is always a big thing. The Veterans Day program is, I think they had it in the afternoon this year, but the veterans do appreciate that. That's always an honor for them. And the Little Learners, I think, is one of the biggest attending in Fellows,ville that there is in the county. And of course, the last one, and it's still going on, is promoting the saving of the school. And I thank you for your attention. If you don't mind, I have one more. And this does have to do with the LSIC meetings. If I can get through this. A gentleman indeed, a willing soul to lead every child to succeed. When the word succeed is mentioned, gold, silver, or other valuable objects and money that money could attain could cross a person's mind. The word succeed has nothing to do with valuable, inanimate objects to the man of which I speak. Success to him was for every child to progress above and beyond the abilities that within yourself cannot be seen or realized until access is given within yourself to bring it to surface, either to your heart, allowing your character to be built or strengthen your mind. How, might you ask? Through the caring hearts of the educator, the parent, the grandparent, community, volunteer, aunt, uncle, sister, brother, so on. A principal, or maybe a friend, perhaps. Learning the least little thing meant you had climbed Mount Everest daily. I know of a little boy who could not count to 10, and it took him forever, which seemed like forever. And this man took him every day and counted. He said he counted to 3. He'd come in the next day and he said he counted to 4. Well, he only counted to 3 again, he'd say. And then finally he'd say, listen to him. And he'd count to 10, and then he'd count to 12. And he just kept trying and trying until this little boy could count to 10. That's how he worked. His goal for the children was to see and learn whatever they were capable of on whatever day their mind was ready to retain it. And until then, he was willing to pull them through, however they needed to be guided along that road. The educating and love for, quote, his babies was never in vain. Our LSIC team had the pleasure of sitting together for the last time as a group on September 12, 2024. We discussed the closure of Fellows-Ville Elementary School, a beloved school of whom I have been speaking of, Mr. Donald Post. I believe Mr. Post said that he had been in Fellows-Ville for, I think, 29 years, not counting after retirement, because he just kept going. He was not in favor of the school's closure, of course. However, I cannot speak for others that were present in the room that day, but I thought highly of the comment that he did not have the opportunity to share with all of you holding the position on the Board of Education. Because we believe that Mr. Post was a man of his word, I would like to share his comment on his behalf. It wasn't long, but it was honorable. Mr. Post said, although if they close the school, it would be a hard pill to swallow, but I would like to thank each of the board members for the time that I did have at this school, and I appreciate all the years here at Fellows. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Klein. Thank you, Fellows-Ville LSIC. Okay, is there any questions from board members or any comments? Okay, not hearing any. Can you guys hear? We'll now move to the Roseburg LSIC presentation.
Again, I would like to welcome all the board members and members up in front of me. In front of you, you should have the report for Roseburg School. Just like Fellows-Ville Elementary, I have the information listed to see if you have any questions. Something interesting about number 1, That lists all of our professional staff here with the exception of 2 half-time teachers. That's our staff. Any questions about any for 1 or 2? All right, if not, I'm going to turn it over.
Who was it next? Mr. Yates, were you next?
All right, yes, due to our limited staff, I will also discuss number 3 and 4. Describe the learning environment in your school and what suggestions you have to improve it. Basically, the same information you heard from Fellows Elementary. We have very passionate, dedicated teachers who work individually with students in well-structured curriculum, flexible seating, positive classroom environment, student-centered, and a very active parent and community involvement. As far as number 4, we have the iReady. Our next diagnostic is in January. We have the RCD units, GSH scores, and the Amira, and then we also utilize PLCs and the MTSS process. And at this time, Mr. Yates will discuss number 5.
Good evening. You're probably going to hold that really close. It seems like the
All right.
volumes are going out. That's better. Thank you.
I know that feeling. So on number 5, as far as new academic processes or changes that would be helpful, as Ms. Mary Ann said, a lot of it is taking time to get used to what we're already doing. And a part of that will be spending time with programs and learning how they work, but I'll say a lot of it is going to be, it takes time over the course of years to look and say, is this helping? If we jump to something else, are we doing that right before we would start seeing the payoff? So simply taking time. There are so many possibilities out there, many of them useful. But one of the things that we've discussed often is we wonder how much more benefit we would have by taking something that is useful and working with it rather than jumping to something else that may or may not give a little bit more. Beyond that, opportunity for collaborative work. One thing about having classes the size of ours, Mrs. Hurst isn't here to defend herself. She's teaching 5 grades. And as she does that, she is sitting down from the time those students walk in of the morning until it's time to head for recess in the buses. She's sitting down. Here's a group of 2, here's a group of 1, because that student needs more help in this area. Here's a group of 2. Let's go back to this one over here. Now we have a group of 3. She is spending her day working with very small groups. In terms of student engagement, you and I both know, we all know, there are students that can remain unengaged one-on-one, but it's an uphill battle for them. And so they are working in very small groups where students have every opportunity to learn. As far as student-led discussions, again, where we're rather custom-made for that. Anytime a student has a question, we have the opportunity to work on chasing that down. And I believe Mrs. Williamson is going to address the next couple of questions.
We're going to change up the batteries real fast.
hopefully I won't get too much feedback on this. Oh, wow. Oh, whoops, I think I messed up. Okay, am I back? All right. Hi, I'm Angie Williams. I teach here and middle school math, science, biology. And I'm here to address a couple different things that were on our agenda. One is about the student attendance and what kind of things we're doing to try to encourage that. First of all, we started at the beginning of the school year really emphasizing to the kids in the classroom about the importance of being here, not just physically, but also mentally, and not just being in the school building, but being in the classroom and being engaged. So that's where we kind of started at the beginning of the year, because the kids need to realize how important it is for them to be here. And then we also have incentives that we use with the kids for that. One of the big ones, and I brought a little one to show you. This is gold here at the school, because these are attendance coupons, and the kids get these. They get one every day they're here, and then they get to go to the store. And PTO has been really, I think PTO is the main funder of that, and they buy all kinds of prizes, and the kids are constantly, do you know if store's going to be open? You know, because they love to go and buy stuff there. So kudos to our PTO for helping support that. But these, they get them, and then we also have a monthly kind of competition between the classes. So whichever class, we have, of course, the K-4, then we do 5, 6, and then 7, 8. We go by homerooms on that. And whichever class had the best attendance for a month, then they get a special incentive. And 2 of the ones that we've had so far, they had like ice cream socials, and that was sponsored by Birch Root Farms, Mrs. Davis's business and Mr. Davis's business. So that was really cool. The kids also enjoy getting that. If same as with Fellows,ville, you know, we keep open the communication lines with parents. If we need to, we can address through the SAT process. If there's attendance issues, letters are sent home via county policy after 3 unexcused absences, and we try to make sure that parents are contacted. Hey, we need some notes in here. It's on our announcements daily. Make sure to remind kids to get their notes in, because we need those notes so we know why the kids aren't here. And then we do, of course, attendance packets, so that we try to make sure that if they aren't here, they get caught up on whatever they had, but nothing takes the place of kids being here. And I will say, at least here at this school, I've noticed this year, I feel like we've moved back more toward normal. Since COVID time, attendance really got hit hard by that, and there was like an after effect. And this year, I feel like it's doing a lot better. I feel like my kids are more present in the building than they have been. And then the next thing I was going to address is student behavioral issues. Honestly, we don't have a lot of those, and most can be addressed at the classroom level. We have our PBS plans, PBIS. Got to make sure I get all my letters in there. So again, we do little paw ticket things, and if they get slips for that, whether it's not for having their homework or things along those lines, we do a weekly incentive for kids that have stayed within the target goals of that. At least at the middle school level, we actually do a weekly thing where if they need to catch up on work, we have a time slot for that, or they get reward at that time. We also do roughly 5 and 10 weeks at the midterm and end of the year. They get a reward system for that. And then also supporting, okay, you're not getting your work done. What can we do to make sure that that's getting turned in? So that's one thing that might be talked with about. And I'll be honest, and I'm hoping I really don't jinx myself. So any students that are here of mine, but this year, Mr. Yates and I, at least at the middle school level, have been astonished by how well the kids have been doing in the program. In fact, we had everybody eligible the first time, and I cannot go back in time and even tell you when that ever happened before. So they're doing a really outstanding job along that line, because that covers getting ready for school and also behavioral issues. So I think they're doing really well with that. Do you have any questions for anything I covered? All right, thank you. So back to Mr. Yates.
So under the heading of at-risk students, every school has them. But for us, it has been tremendously helpful. The ones who work with after-school explorers, we've been able to use that to address specific needs, specific gaps in learning. With the Tier 2 and Tier 3 programs that we've talked about, again, in our K-4 room, Mrs. Hurst and Mrs. Seibold, they're pretty well living in Tier 2 mode. Again, we're doing that one-to-one, one-to-two, reteaching, re-reteaching, re-re-reteaching, and working with each student according to their needs. We're looking forward to the tutor that has been approved, because again, even with a relatively small number of students, there are a lot of needs. There are a lot of grades in one place. And so we're looking forward to having reinforcements on hand to be able to come alongside and address things that haven't been able to be done yet. And again, a lot of it is communication. That actually leads into number 9 with the resources needed. A lot of it is just continuing to develop what we are doing, particularly in how we are addressing so far unmet needs, working with teachers, well, first with teachers and then with parents. And to say that some of our processes have changed. Students that have been involved with SAT in the past, frankly this fall, we've been, as teachers, learning how do we do this process now. It's an improved process. The changes are beneficial. It's also taken some time for us to get a handle on how to understand those ourselves and then to pass that on to parents. So just continuing with that process, where we're looking forward to how the year progresses. And then as far as major areas that our LSIC has been addressing, again, it comes back to reading, writing, doing math. Also, all of those other areas that sometimes we say, well, we need to set those aside to focus on, but looking at science and at history and at careers and at technology and at music and at looking at all of these areas that make well-rounded students. Because it isn't just test scores. Again, everyone in this room knows that. Sometimes there's an awful lot of pressure put on everyone in this room to say we have to get these scores up, and it's tempting to let those other things that don't have numbers attached slide in. And again, I've been thankful. In some ways this year, we've been able to offer a choir to some of the older students. That hasn't been there in a while. Seeing some opportunities to say these things matter. These are some of the things that we remember from growing up. And so seeing those things implemented as well as continuing to pursue excellence in areas that get measured. And of course you see on the list there, or the discussion in LSIC has been, what becomes of the school? How do we think about the future? How does that change? And what we've told the students all the way along this fall, and we've repeated it in the last couple of weeks, is, guys, you're stuck with us till May anyway. As long as there are students walking through that door, we're going to be teaching them. We're going to be listening to them, talking to them, seeing where they are. That's not changing. Eventually, location will. Did you all have any questions on any of those sections? If not, then I'll hand this off very gladly.
Hi, I'm Sarah Seibold. I am your K-4 Teacher's Aide, Parent Volunteer Coordinator, and the PTO President. So, addressing the business partners in our community, Dean Farms is one of our biggest. They have a student here in the school, and they've done improvements with our signs, fundraisers, they are amazing. They donate to every fundraiser we have. Birch Street Farms is another one. That is Robin and Jim Davis's business, and they do donations for the playground. They have provided, as I said, the ice cream socials for our attendance incentives, fundraisers, they do baskets, you name it. 8Z Timber, they did mulch for our school playground and our flower beds. We have enough sponsors that our yearbook last year was completely paid for just with advertisements that the community and the businesses paid for. Forgive me. Holy Duck Tumblers, they do prizes and fundraisers for us. We're actually going to work with them, I think, in the spring with a different fundraiser for our school. Clear Mountain Bank does provide gold dollars for us, for our perfect attendance students. The Rollsburg Lions Club, now they have been fundamental in getting us prize money. They have brought us Santa's Workshop money. They paid for K2 to go on their field trip last year, just so PTO wouldn't have to fund that. They were wonderful. Rollsburg Methodist Church sent us an extra $200 for Santa's Workshop this year. I just received that information a couple of days ago. They provided that to PTO. Cheat River General Store, they do cash prizes. They've done, I don't know how many different times, they've given me $50, $60 to put into the cakewalk for the fall festival, or they'll give me $50 for the school store, whatever I need to do for the students. But we do have a lot of businesses that do donate into our school in small amounts, but in big ways, because it makes a big difference for such a small student body. Our parent involvement, we have the school store, we have parents come in and help set up for that. Our dance, any dances, they usually come in and help decorate. The book fair, we have parents that come in and run that for us every day. Our Veterans Day program, they, Mrs. Brake is one of our biggest ones. She comes in and she does our serving, and her and her daughter this year came in and they talked to all our veterans and they greeted everyone. They did a great job. Grasshopper basketball, especially PTO, we work the entrances, the concession stands, you name it, we're into it. Santa's Workshop, we maintain the tables, we run everything, we restock. As PTO, that's kind of just where we land. We do it all. The holiday parties, we see a lot of parent involvement there. Our parents come in, they spend the time with their kids. It gives them an opportunity to see what our classroom environment's like. It's really good for them. We have library volunteers that come in and straighten things up for us. End of year bash last year, I had multiple parents who came in and just helped sunscreen kids or help dry them off, find them decent little things that they needed to do throughout. Of course, PTO, our LSIC, family community nights, trunk or treat. We had a ton of businesses that usually showed up. This year, not quite as many, but I think we've seen a downturn in the amount of businesses in the area, but they did provide large amounts of treats for our kids. No kid went without a ton of candy. Movie nights, they serve popcorn, Dr. Seuss nights. You can look down. Little Learners is not on the list, but that's another one. That's another big thing that brings parents into our schools. We don't have a whole lot of students right now coming in, but the ones that are coming are faithful to it. They come every Wednesday, and of course, Ms. Castle does a wonderful job. But you can see there, we have a lot of parental involvement. We are such a small community, we don't always expect to have a lot of people, but it's wonderful when they do show up. And so that's about it. If you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Seipel. Thank you for the Rollsburg LSIC. Is there questions from board members or comments? I just have one quick question. This would be to a concern that Mrs. Plum and Mr. Yates brought up. I think you guys said something to the effect of time to develop an expertise with initiatives curriculum that is currently in place before things change, something to that effect. Thank you. Whenever Mrs. McDonald, Mrs. Rush, I believe now, whenever she presents to us, that's definitely something that we can say, and I'll encourage Mr. Martin to mention that to Mrs. McDonald. But I would like to remind the curriculum teams, for you all and as educators and also other curriculum teams, that you have more authority than anyone else to dictate or determine what curriculum initiatives and strategies you use through your curriculum plans. As far as board members, we don't have any authority to tell you how to do your curriculum. We simply listen to your plans and say yes, no, or what have you thought of this, or what changes. So if you feel like things are being changed too quickly, I know the state with its reading has dictated a lot of those changes that we can't do, and if that's what you're referring to, I'm sorry, I can't help in that regards. But if it's in other subject matters, then just remember back to the curriculum teams that your guys' ability to impact that. Okay. Anything else for the LSSEs? Okay. Thank you all. We appreciate it. Okay. Next on the agenda is approving the minutes for November 12th, 2024. This is an action information item. Can I get a motion to approve the minutes for November 12th? Okay, Mr. Hovatter has made that motion.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any corrections, changes, or additions to the minutes for November 12th? Okay. Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Room is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is meeting minutes for November 18th, 2024. This is an action and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the minutes for November 18th. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Hovatter. Is there any comments, questions, or corrections? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Room is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is the after-school club approval for Libera. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It is recommended that the board approve the Libera Club as a voluntary after-school club for the 2024-25 school year. Can I get that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Miller. Okay, discussion or comments? Yeah.
Mr. Tatum, I did want to advise the board, Beth Kearns with Libera is available here tonight. I know that was one thing that Mr. Hovatter had mentioned at our last meeting. So Mrs. Kearns is available to field any questions, or if any of the board members would want her to briefly present, I'd included that within the agenda item.
Basically, describe what goes on at the meetings after school.
I'm sorry, sir, I didn't hear you.
Basically, describe what goes on at meetings after school, or how.
Absolutely. And I also brought another updated sheet for you all with our latest information. So, the way that a club would be, group would be offered after school would be completely voluntary. They would still have to have parental permission slips signed so that the parent's fully aware that a child was taking place in the program. And it would be 6 to 8 weeks of our typical program as far as recognizing self-confidence barriers, helping them understand emotional regulation. And as you can see on there, our latest information that came back through, 93.8% of the girls that have gone through the program say that it has been beneficial to them. And I can honestly tell you that just in the last month since I presented to the last board meeting, I've encountered 4 girls from Preston County and residential facilities at other places in the state who said they wish that they had had this as an option, because now that they have gone through the program, they realize how beneficial it would be. And I'm always open to questions, dialogue. I appreciate appreciate the invitation to even come back. When Mr. Hovatter reached out to me, I was in San Francisco at a conference, and I was so thankful that he welcomed and we had that conversation. It truly made my day. So I appreciate that, thank you very much. But, I'll give you my personal email. Just the impact that we're seeing across the state with the girls is just phenomenal. I mean, it truly has been life-changing. There's never a time that if a girl doesn't want to share or they no longer want to take part in a group, they're welcome to leave, no questions asked. It's completely up to them. We're not going to ever force anybody to share anything that they feel uncomfortable sharing. But the amount of community and the amount of anxiety and self-awareness that comes out of the groups is truly something. I mean, the groups that I did here myself at Rollsburg School, we actually followed up with some of those girls once they went to high school because that transition was going to be so anxiety producing for them. It was beneficial, Mountaineer Challenge Academy, the girls are getting ready to graduate. So we met back with them because we have ongoing groups there on a regular basis. And just that connection and that community that they've established. The groups will be an hour to an hour and a half, 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and then once that group's finished, we can either enroll other girls or they're welcome to go through the program a second time as well.
You hold on to the mic. Is there other board members that have questions or comments, or student board members that have anything to question or say?
I would just like to add, when I reached out to Ms. Kearns, like she said, she was in San Francisco, and I had a list of questions, and we had probably a 25-minute conversation, and just the compassion that she shows, and just how much caring she has, it shows. And we were able to talk even about a personal level. So when you presented to us the first time, I don't think we had a true feeling, I didn't anyway, of what all you were presenting or offering. But I do appreciate you. Like she said, she's in San Francisco at I'm not sure what you were doing.
It was the conference presenting the impact of our groups to a national conference. Actually, there were 4,200 people, 27 countries represented, and we presented on the impact of our programming.
So while doing that, she took a recess from the meeting and had a 25-minute conversation, answered the questions I had, my concerns. I really appreciate that.
And I encourage anybody, parent, community member, we're here to listen. We're here to help along this programs. I stepped away from a guaranteed 35-year healthcare career because I'm so passionate about helping the girls throughout West Virginia. I left what was certain and guaranteed because I saw the impact it had not only on my life, and I shared a little bit of that with Mr. Hovatter, but what I've seen throughout the state with girls. So my goal is to start with an after-school program, and then once you see how well it works, hopefully maybe kind of revisit it again in the future for being part of the school programming. But thank you for the opportunity.
So my question is, why do you want in the school system?
It's just like in Ohio County schools where we are right now, it just works the best that we're able to reach the most amount of girls because of transportation issues. The requirements for like parental information or parental permission doesn't change whether it's an after-school program. This will actually be the only after-school program that we offer. All the other counties, now 15, we're in the school program.
But you have a bus, like why do you want in the school?
We actually don't have a bus right now. Somebody cut the catalytic converters off of it.
Okay.
So we have 2 buses, but neither are operational right now. Some of our grant money, or we're trying to find a way to get one of those operational and back on the road, but right now they're not operational. And with our volunteers and myself, I travel all over the state just to reach girls. So I appreciate that question.
And again, I appreciate you coming to speak. I will just remind the board one final thing. Straight from their website, the histories of racism, colorism, gender binaryism, and transphobia are inextricably linked due to the creation of a sex binary system that was medicalized to naturalize and institutionalize racism, sexism, and gender roles. Rooted in a history of colonization, white supremacy, and genocide, racialized people are the intended targets of increased state violence, incarceration, and economic and health disparities with intergenerational impacts specific to the different community histories. This is a core belief for people that want to help our youth.
Our core belief is everyone has value, everyone. And our three main goals: listen, learn, and love. Listen to people where they are, who they are. Learn from them and love them where they are. I wish you could have had some of the conversations with the girls from Preston County as I sat across the table from them who wished they'd had that. It could have made a huge impact, and it actually has made an impact as we do the groups with them. There are so many, and I know you don't care for this word, barriers that Appalachian children, I was one of them, face. And we don't want them to have that, just to be more self-aware. That's, to overcome those barriers.
All for helping our youth. I do believe we want to do that in an actual manner, but thank you.
Sure.
I have one thing if I can. You discussed the parental agreement that wouldn't change. Could you inform the board on what that agreement is? That way parents are aware, or what that permission looks like for their students, for their child to participate in this club.
Sure, yeah, it's a standardized form that we ran past our lawyer that just says your daughter, a student at whatever school, you give permission for them to take part in the program, and it's, the details what the program is about, and also that if at any point the child no longer wants to be part of it, they can leave with no problem. And the parent has to sign off on it and date it.
Because I think this has been in the school before, and I remember middle school, some of my friends, they went to it, and I think that when they went to it, nothing at all, but I think if we're going to do this, we just need to be open and transparent with what this club is, if that's the board's decision to go
I'm all
with it.
about transparency.
So I'm all about it too, so I think that way everybody's fully aware of what your mission statements are, where your core beliefs are, and how you feel and where you stand, so maybe if that's something that continues, or maybe we can see more be a more extensive letter to the parents, that way they really know what this program can provide for their children.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I didn't bring a copy of that with me, but I'm happy to share with the board is what that looks like. Like I said, it's the same one that we use no matter where the programming is.
Are you, sorry, because we're coming back to this, are you saying that you would never talk to a student without their parents' permission?
And absolutely.
Okay, so.
A parent has to sign off for a child to be part of the group, 100%.
To be part of a group, but was Libera at a school event where there was a presentation made in order to talk to students after that presentation?
Through Shield Safety Assembly, but that's not a part of Libera.
Yeah, but Libera was there talking with students without parental permission. Is that correct?
So with our parental permission is to go through our programming. When we were there as listeners after a Shield Safety Assembly, that parental permission is because the school brought Shield Safety in, there was parental permission for the students to attend that.
So, you believe that parents had signed a permission slip to be able to talk after the, well, I'm asking, because I feel like I'm not getting a straight answer again, which is what my biggest frustration is with this entire thing. Do you believe that parents had signed a permission slip for Libera to talk with students after the presentation from Shield Safety?
The parents signed a permission slip for their children to attend assemblies, I'm sure, right? Anything that the school approves to be presented?
Not necessarily, Mrs. Kearns, so body safety is something I believe is required by the public.
Yeah, body safety is required.
Typically, parents are made aware of the presentations, they know it's occurring, generally does not necessarily require a signature.
Okay, whatever the school's policy is for the Shield Safety Assembly, which is state required, I think it's actually nationally required, but definitely state required. We were just there as volunteers to help the Shield Safety Assembly, yes.
Okay, so you did talk to students without parental permission?
We did not talk to them about the Libera program, no.
I just am asking if you talked to students without parental permission.
I would answer that no, because they knew their child was gonna be part of the assembly that the school was offering.
Okay, thank you.
It wasn't Libera specific.
Thank you. Any comments or discussion from this end? Okay, call the vote.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, next on the agenda is student affiliation agreement between the Preston County Board of Education and Preston Memorial Hospital. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the student affiliation agreement between the Preston County Board of Ed and Preston County Hospital for the 2024-25 academic year. Can I get a motion? Moved by Mr. Hovatter.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigray. Mr. Martin or Mrs. Varner, do you all want to say anything about it first?
No, this was just, it's loud. Get back a little bit. This was provided by Mrs. LaRue in the CT program for her students that are working out in clinical placements with Preston Memorial Hospital.
Any comments or questions from board members?
I would just say page 5 needs updated. It still references the previous superintendent as the agreeing party.
I'll make that correction. Say page 5?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other comments or corrections? Questions? Okay. Not hearing any, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is the MOU between Preston County Schools and Valley Mental Health. This is an action, discussion, and information item. Recommend that the board approve the MOU between Preston County Schools and Valley Mental Health to provide behavioral health services.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, made by Mr. Zigray. Second by Mr. Hovatter. Discussion. Or is there anything the administration wants to say about it first?
This is just for Valley Mental Health to help provide consultative services to the district. For example, can assist our special education department in the formation or development of services for IEP services. And again, just to provide targeted assistance in terms of student behavioral issues.
And would that be for the general public as well, not just special education?
Enrolled students.
My only concern, Mr. Martin, would be item number 10 of the bullet point list. It says that, and again, I assume this has not happened or not happened in the past or not likely to happen, but it says that if we wanted to pursue, if there was any issue that we are forced to go to a court in Charleston, Kanawha County, I don't know why we would agree to that, to that extra burden if we were to have a legal recourse. So I'll leave that to determination for discussion, but I don't know what benefit we have to agreeing to that.
Yeah,
in
I'm
a
not certain why
contract.
that was specified within the policy. I can see what I can find out.
Yeah, to me, it would be to our advantage to be able to do things locally, since that's where the services are and that's where we're doing things. But again, I will leave that at your discretion
Okay.
before you sign it based on our vote.
Okay. Any other discussion? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is clinical experience agreement between Preston County Schools and Western Governors University. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the clinical experience agreement between Preston County Schools and Western Governors University. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Hobatter. Mrs. Varner, or
I said Mrs. Varner could probably speak to this, but
just speak loudly if you want.
This is just one of our universities that we often pair with, that we do a lot of placements for student teachings and or observation hours. So
Okay.
this is just one of our mutual agreements that we go through every year.
Any questions for Mrs. Varner? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. Next on the agenda, the superintendent has requested the board to enter into executive session to be updated by the Superintendent Martin on a pending legal matter. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner.
Second.
Second by Mr. Zigrig. Is there any discussion on the motion? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open.
Okay.
Motion passes 5-0 at 8 o'clock. Back on, Mrs. Varner.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. Kisner to resume to open session, and it has been seconded by Mr. Zigrig. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there any discussion? Okay, this will be a voice vote. Okay, we'll start with Mr. Hobatter.
Yes.
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 8-12.
Okay, the board during executive session was updated by the superintendent on pending legal matter. No action was taken and no vote was taken. Next on the agenda is service personnel. It is recommended that the board approve the service personnel agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Hobatter. Is there anything that you'd like to say, Mrs. Varner? No? Okay. Is there any discussion or questions from board members? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is the professional personnel agenda. Recommend that the board approve the professional agenda. Can I get a motion, please?
Make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Hovatter,
Second.
second by Mr. Zigrig. Okay, Mrs. Varner or Mr. Martin, is there anything you want to say about the professional agenda?
Okay. Why are we adding 2 special ed jobs at this time?
Due to new students enrolling or the need for additional assistance. And I have the funds within the levy money in order to add them. They are going to be put in place to give additional assistance for now, but they will be cut at the end of this year.
So just for the time remaining?
Yes.
When we're looking at like new spots for next year, instructional coaches, are they under federally funded money?
They come out of title money, yes.
And our dean of students?
Comes out of federal funds money, yes.
Okay, any other questions, Mr. Zigrig?
No.
Okay, other questions from board members? Not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Mr. Martin?
Okay. Mr. Tatum, first of all, the board members, you should have a couple documents in your packets. First was emailed to all employees this morning. It includes a weekly schedule. Of course, we are starting our second quarter data meetings. We had a meeting this morning at Aurora School. And Mrs. Varner and I came down here and set up for the board meeting, back to Kingwood, then back here to Rollsburg. But you can kind of see what's on the docket this week. We've got several of those data meetings that are scheduled. In addition, board members, I did want to call to your attention. Well, I'm going to bring that up later, so I don't know that I need to hit that right now. I did want to recognize we had 18 teachers or educators who were recently recognized at the Your Community Foundation Award Ceremony at Bridgeport. I was unable to be present for that meeting. Of course, that was the same night as the school closure hearing in Kingwood. I sent Mr. Hogue and Mrs. Rush to represent the school district. But we had a great turnout, as you can see, of educators who attended. Again, 18 winners representing 7 of our 10 schools actually had winning submissions. We certainly appreciate the ongoing support by Your Community Foundation. We had a large number of winners last year. So certainly, first of all, we appreciate our teachers taking the time and effort to fill out applications, seeking out funding to improve their classrooms. But we also certainly appreciate the funding source from Your Community Foundation. Also in that packet, we included the Staff Wellness Challenge for the month of December. We also have a Student Wellness Challenge that Mr. Hogue developed, so we wanted to share that out. We'll certainly try to promote that as much as possible. Our brain freeze protocols, we wanted to get that published in the fact that, obviously we had some adverse weather right before the break in which we had to actually have a day off of school. Thus far, board members, we have five days in which we can take a traditional snow day where staff nor students attend. We've used one of those days thus far, so we have 4 left potentially. We have 4 days of potential brain freeze because the day that we used following the threat scare at the high school was deemed a brain freeze day, so we have 4 of those days left as well. So we have 8 days to use before we would have to begin extending the school calendar for the year. And all the pertinent information is indicated there. In regards to my report, following the board's vote on the closure of Fellows-Ville and Rollsburg that is scheduled, that took place on November 18th, I have forwarded all required materials and information to the West Virginia State Board of Education for their review and the vote on the possible school closure measures during their December 11th meeting. A delegation from the central office, I anticipate myself, Mrs. Varner, Mrs. Kerstetter, Mr. Murray, Mr. Plum will be in attendance at that meeting. The state board meeting is scheduled for 10 a.m. We will be down there with 3 other districts who are also proposing potential school closures. Again, that will take place on December 11th. Work has been finalized in the PHS secure entryway. We're now moving forward with the Kingwood Elementary. I've submitted the bid documents to the SBA for their review. We have 1 submitted architect. We're just making sure that with only 1 submission, that's going to be, if we need to do any rebidding processes before the SBA will allow us to proceed. Working to schedule a public work session to discuss pressing legislative topics with our local legislative representatives in advance of the 2025 legislative session. Shooting for January, the legislative session actually starts late this year. They're not going to start until February. So looking at one of those off board meeting Mondays during the month of January to potentially get that scheduled. So we'll reach out to all of our representatives, and I think we did one of these 2 years ago. So we're hopeful that last time I think all of our representatives were able to attend. We'll certainly try to find an amicable date to get that scheduled as soon as possible, and then I'll communicate that to our board members, student board members, and the general public and the media. CT retail store is supposed to have a soft opening tomorrow. They pushed it back 1 day, just coming off a break. They felt like it was better open on Tuesday versus Monday. We are going to have the grand opening scheduled on the 16th. Our hired managers are Robert Garner and Brian Bailey. They're working in consult with Mr. Justice and other CT staff to get student personnel hired and trained, get inventory in the building. But we're very, very excited about, this has taken a long time, but we're certainly very excited about the potential opening of the CT retail store. What's the hours tomorrow? Tomorrow, I believe that they open while school's still going. I think they're talking, Ms. Varner, they were talking originally like around 2:30 to like 5 or 6. I'll find out, Mr. Ziegler, I'll find out, and I'll certainly text you guys. If any of you want to stop up and just check it out, I'll certainly get that information to you. Also wanted to revise again the second quarter data meeting. Started off, we were at Aurora today. I did include in your packets a copy of kind of the topics of discussion that take place at those data meetings. I think I missed no, I got it all. All of the topics are listed there, board members. Again, the topics of discussion at these data meetings do vary from each quarter, but I just wanted to let you know, those were the things we'll be talking about during the course of the data meetings for this term. Middle school sports are kicking off this week, and I think high school winter sports are kicking off as well. We've got some of those updates on Facebook with that. Mrs. Varner, do you have anything from a personnel standpoint that you want to advise the board on?
I'll be starting to meet with a lot of the county. I've already met with Mr. Hogue. I'm going to be meeting with Mr. Plum, start looking at personnel decisions and things. When we're doing our data talks, I am discussing broadly with
Kind of
principals,
preliminary
talks with principals, just to get their minds to start thinking about possibilities within their schools. But right now for this month, I'm mainly working with our county level directors and stuff as a broad picture of looking at cuts that way to start with. But I am starting personnel decisions now, so.
Okay.
Are we gonna keep the schools open that we're closing all summer so the teachers have time to move their stuff from one area to not have to move like twice, once to their house and back to another school?
I mean, I would say,
This building with the plan is not scheduled for liquidation. The Fellows-Ville building is, but certainly we would have to make sure that we have opportunity to go, and now mind you, this is pending, obviously, state board approval. But if it is ultimately approved, there would be a process. Obviously, the county would go in. For example, there's a lot of technology equipment that would need to be removed, potentially purposed in other facilities. But obviously, staff would need to have an opportunity to get all their personal items out. But we would obviously establish times. But we also don't want that to drag out. We would want to potentially liquidate that property pending board approval in a timely manner at Fellows-Ville, because that's what the plan indicated. So we would like to want to get that accomplished before the winter. Anything else, Mr. Ziegler?
No.
Okay. Our next board meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 16th at 6 p.m. at Central Preston. I do know that we have multiple student hearings scheduled. Mr. Tatum, I might talk with you afterwards just to see from a scheduling standpoint how we might want to accommodate that, or if we would want to look at breaking that up. So we'll talk to you to see what we might want to do and communicate to the board members as to their availability. That's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there questions or comments from board members for the superintendent?
Mr. Martin, when you get the legislative day set, if you think about it, could you send that over to the head of the levy committee? I think
Absolutely, yes, Mrs. Hayes, yes.
Also coordinate something. If they're already all going to be there, I think if we give them a heads up on that as soon as we have it.
We had talked about that it probably would be difficult to get it scheduled prior to Christmas, but I had spoken with Mrs. Hayes about that specifically.
Yeah, they just may want to set right up that.
Absolutely.
And would you, if you can, could we get some of the results after you do your data talks too on the student discipline section of that?
Yeah.
Just some of the feedback and results of those talks from each of the schools, if you could, please.
The one today was very favorable. When they compared the data from last year to this year, it looked much, much better. So I can see that in a lot of places.
Thank you.
Other comments? Thank you, Mr. Martin. Next item on the agenda is out-of-state field trips. This is an action and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the following out-of-school field trips for Preston High School Agriculture and Preston County FFA chapter to the Pennsylvania Farm Show in Harrisburg, PA on January 10th, 2025. And that information is available in the public content.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Ziegler.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns?
It's an awesome opportunity. I'm glad you're taking it.
Okay. Anything else? Call the vote.
Vote is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is the chaperone volunteer list. This is an action item. It's recommended that the board approve the chaperone list for Kingwood Elementary School and volunteer list for Brewston School. Okay, both items are available in the public content. Yeah, and one in the administrative content folder.
I'll get that moved up. I don't need to drop that in. I'm not sure what I'm going to say.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigray. Okay, is there any questions or discussion? Not hearing any, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is professional meetings. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the submitted out-of-state professional meetings. One is for Abigail Rexroad, Brewston School, to the Midwest International Band Conference, and the second is for Michelle Roddick, Preston High School, to the National Art Education Association Convention, and additional information is available in the public content. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner,
Second.
second by Mr. Zigray. Discussion. Just for clarity, what is Title II funds?
Title II funds is another federal program, deals with mainly professional development.
Okay, so both of them are being paid for by federal dollars for professional development.
The majority of Ms. Rexroad, I was actually approached by Randall Reed Smith. He indicated he has a potential scholarship for one middle school band director. Asked if I had anyone interested. Certainly tried to make, he gave me a couple hours, man, so he didn't give me a lot of time. I think he was rapidly trying to fill the spot, but Ms. Rexroad was primary. The majority of the funding of that is coming actually from the Department of Ed.
Okay, any other comments or discussion? Okay, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item is, well, first of all, thank you everyone for that one. And then next is curriculum and instruction on the ongoing literacy discussion. Is there anything you want to say, Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I just included this. This was actually from the Department of Ed, sent this out. The Department of Ed is actually pursuing or paying for what's called letters training, which I tried to give you the information within the packet. But again, it's targeted for K-3 educators in terms of science reading training. They're actually going to be doing 2 different cohorts. I know that Mrs. Rush and the academic coaches are working to ascertain interest levels of our K-3 staff. One thing that we are looking at is that this is a pretty substantial multi-year process. So we're going to have to bring forth, before we get the crew in, is bring forth a recommendation to the board for some level of compensation on the extracurricular, what's the?
Supplemental salary.
Supplemental salary scale. For full completion of the process, there will be, we anticipate that our participants should be compensated in some capacity for hours put in outside of the existing workday. We're gonna have to build that so that we don't see conflict where they're incurring hours during the course of the workday. But we're talking about numbers, and again, before we would roll this out, this is something we'd have to put forth with a recommendation, modification to the supplemental salary scale for the board's review.
Okay. Any questions?
I know Mrs. Miller said she was trained in this process when she was in Barber County. Said it was very intensive, but also very, very good training. We appreciate the Department of Ed picking up the cost of the training itself. Now, participants can also seek additional collegiate credit. We would anticipate that would be something that would have to be pursued by the individuals completing it rather than the board putting it up. Although individuals could request potential tuition reimbursement from the State Department and could possibly be funded that way.
And if they would do college hours, it could also, they could also apply for advanced salary placement if they have enough hours to be able to bounce to a next.
Good training, opportunity for some solid professional development, for collegiate credit. Again, we think this is a win-win for sure.
Yes, renewal of teaching license. There's multiple pieces that can be used for it.
Thank you. Okay. Anything on that? Okay. Next on the agenda is under our policy and review adoption section. We have Preston County Schools Policy 11-6, intro intra-county student transfers. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended to the board that we approve the modifications to Preston County Schools Policy 11-6, intra-county student transfers for immediate approval. This requested change is being recommended to ensure that Roseburg area students have unrestricted transportation to Kingwood area schools following an approved intra-county transfer request. This was assured to Roseburg area citizens during the school closure process. As this is a cosmetic change to existing policy, the request has been made for immediate implementation, waiving first and second read requirements. Mr. Martin?
Yes. Board members, strong. Board members, again, there were two separate policies that reference this, and quite frankly, this was an oversight on my part. Back when I'd first become superintendent back in 2022, this policy was changed, I believe, in like October of that year. There were a number of Roseburg area students at that point in time who requested the possibility of being able to attend Kingwood area schools. At that time, there was, I believe, the board, the policy that was put forth, approved by the board, only allowed for AM transportation and not PM. I think the thought process behind that at that point in time was PM transportation like would require like additional supervision after school hours. We feel that under the I feel that under the circumstances, this was something that, Dr. Weaver referenced earlier. I feel this just is something that needs to be changed to ensure that if a student from the Roseburg area applies for an intra-county transfer, that they would have, unfettered transportation pending approval of the transportation request or of the transfer request.
Thank you, Mr. Martins. Can I get a motion for that?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, moved by Mr. Zigre.
Second.
Second by Mr. Kisner. Now, is there any board member discussion or questions?
Mr. Tatum, a couple of the line item straights. I've taken out this policy pending state approval is going to need a lot of adjustment anyway, because again, some of our school zones are going to need to be potentially changed pending approval of that. But I did strike the Roseburg school zone. I've made that change to Roseburg area. So obviously anyone that's within what is currently seen as the Roseburg attendance area, Roseburg zip code, that's what we would entail with this. And again, this is just adjustment to the existing policy. You can see what's been changed in yellow and line strict anything that's been removed from the existing policy. The other policy document 11-6A has very similar references that were adjusted in the same manner.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Is there any objection to doing it on one read? If not hearing any, I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is very similar. It's Preston County Schools Policy 11-6A, our attendance zone policy. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the modifications to Preston County Schools Policy 11-6A, attendance zone policy for immediate approval. This requested change is being recommended to ensure that Roseburg area students have unrestricted transportation to Kingwood area schools following an approved intra-county transfer request. This was assured to Roseburg area citizens during the school closure process. As this is a cosmetic change to existing policy, the request has been made for immediate implementation, waiving first and second read requirements. Can I get that motion?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Zigre. Same concept as before. Same
It was just
changes.
referenced in a similar manner in both policies.
And those policies are available in the public content. Okay, is there any questions from board members? Not hearing any, and there's no objection for doing it in one read. Okay, call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is Preston County Schools Policy 11-22, Student Publications. This is just a discussion and information item. It is not an action item for today. Mr. Martin has given rationale in the public content portion with a folders with the files of information. Do you want to address it further?
Yes, Mr. Tatum. The only thing I would say is you saw that I made a reference to our legal counsel. I just got that response back to that. I was not able to get that on the agenda. However, I will be able to have that available for our next meeting scheduled on the 16th. Really, before I would like to bring forth any official policy recommendation, I would like an opportunity though to bring this forth before Mrs. Arbogast and her students. I think they put a ton of time and effort into the process, so certainly I'd like to involve them in their review of any potential changes that may be made. And I need to make sure anything that I put forth as a prospective change is in line with Mrs. Croyle's recommendations. So I'll kind of take the document that she sent and synthesize that along with what I brought forth as a potential edited version of the draft edit from the school publications. But in the document, you can see that's our current policy, what the students brought forth, and what I brought forth that I felt was an appropriate recommendation. But again, I want to kind of run that by what Mrs. Croyle sent, and then I would like an opportunity to speak with Mrs. Arbogast and her students before bringing the board a formal policy request.
So again, this is discussion only and information. Does board members have any concerns at this point that they want to alert Mr. Martin?
Mr. Martin, on the page 2, second paragraph or second bullet point above school policy, says they also cannot penalize your or your student media advisor. There's either a word missing there or there's an extra your. I couldn't tell which. The only other thing that I would say is I know that
Are you talking about the one that's got the
with your blue marking, yes,
okay.
yeah. In reading over the proposed changes, it stipulates that the federal law says that you cannot hold a teacher liable for not restricting something, the advisor, the teacher, whatever. But I would say that I would personally prefer verbiage saying that we can hold them liable to make sure they do their review job. Like that is, I mean, there's no reference to the editor in this and who that would be, but I'm just saying, like, to make sure that they are reviewing. I don't want things being published that were not reviewed on the basis of you can't hold me liable for allowing something.
In my review, again, I wanted Mrs. Croyle to review, but I looked at it as, even if the students were working for the New York Times, there's an editor that's going to say, yeah, I'm going to put this in the newspaper, or no, I'm not. So I think there has to be some level of review process involved. So I felt like I probably made it a little more restrictive than what was recommended. If I'm legally out of bounds in that, I'm sure Mrs. Croyle will tell me that I'm legally out of bounds on that. But, you know, I certainly appreciate the students and the teachers' efforts to really take this on. I just want to make sure that I have no interest in being like in control of this or anything like that, but I do think there does need to be a certain level of editorial review that needs to be included within this document. But again, and board members, if this is confusing, I think I tried to explain this, but in the yellow is what the changes that the students made to the existing policy. The blue was any potential edits that I made to their existing edits, if that makes sense. So.
And I would say your edited version, I'm much more likely to approve personally. I mean, just I was not comfortable with the original version personally. Like I thought your edits were appropriate.
I wasn't totally either. And again, if I'm out of bounds with that, or if I'm legally on bad footing, I hope Mrs. Croyle can advise. But I looked at that, and again, I think they did a great job. But I did think there needed to be some modification to that, which is kind of what we talked about. But again, I like Mrs. Croyle's feedback, and again, I want to talk with the kids. Like, I'm not just doing this just to do this. Like, there's reasoning behind it, and kind of talk with the kids about that. Because again, I just really respect what they did. I think they did a tremendous job. I really appreciate the kids and Mrs. Arbogast taking the initiative to take on this policy review. You know, really, I would encourage other students and staff to do the same. I think it was a great process for them. But yeah, I'll take on any additional questions you can.
And I do appreciate that. I did reach out to Ms. Arbogast and I copied you. Just, I would feel it would be beneficial for the board to see some of the products that they are putting out currently, to see how things are designated as to an opinion section versus a news section, or what they're publishing. So hopefully when this is brought back, we'll have some of those samples for us to review how that's
I'm sure she can provide that in terms of yearbook references. They do have an Excalibur newsletter that's going out as well. They also do some digital and video so forth. So really, it would be great to see some examples of that. So if Mrs. Arbogast is able to accommodate that, that would be wonderful.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Next on the agenda under finance is contract review as per policy 8200. However, there's no contracts at this point that fall in that category. Next on the agenda is the levy check report for November 12th, 2024, and this is informational, and it's in the public content section. Is there any comments or questions? Not hearing any. Next on the agenda is the schedule of checks to be written. This is an action item, and it's recommended that the board approve the schedule of checks to be written.
So moved.
Okay, moved by Mr. Kisner. Second by Mr. Hobatter. Comments or questions? Any comments, questions? Nope. Mr. Hobatter? No. Okay, I call the vote.
Bring us open. Motion passes 5-0.
Next on the agenda is a request for Brewston School boys basketball to utilize alternate practice facility for select practice sessions. This is an action, discussion, and information item. It's recommended that the board approve the Brewston School boys basketball team to utilize an alternate practice facility at 17455 Brandonville Pike, owned by Tyler Watring, when conflicts arise with using the school gym during the 2024-25 season.
So moved.
Okay, it's moved by Mr. Kisner, second by Mr. Hobatter. Any comments or discussion?
Mr. Tatum, this request had come in by Principal Nods. I just think there's times they're running into conflict where they're wanting to utilize the gym at the same time. I had them send pictures of the facility because I wanted to make sure it was a reputable facility. It's full-size floor, definitely sufficient space, seems, in terms from a safety standpoint. I would equate this, we've had similar requests, for example, like to host off-site events and so forth on private property. But I would equate that to a similar process to get this approved. I think we've had a couple cross-country meets, for example, that are off-school premises that have been approved in a similar fashion.
And just to clarify, if for some reason some student or employee was hurt on this off-site property, would our liability insurance cover them on the office?
My understanding is approved by the board that you would have coverage.
Okay. Any comments or questions?
Do we have other area schools that have a backup basketball gym to use?
We don't, I mean, do we have that could? Yes. We've had no one request as such. Like, for example, West Preston, there's the youth center out there at Beadsville. The Aurora has a Maple Spring Church. I mean, there's some church locations and so forth. This has just been the first school that's formally requested as such.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I call the vote.
Voting is open. Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the maintenance work order system update. This is for information. Any questions or comments? Okay, not hearing any. Student board members, is there anything that you want?
I actually have two things. In the women's history hall and bathroom, I think I said this last time, but there are 3 stalls that are missing locks to the doors. And in the mailroom women's restroom, just to be quite frank, it just needs some more attention and a more thorough cleaning. There's lots of trash on the floor, some of which is including feminine products, and I just think it needs some extra attention.
Okay, thank you, Brooklyn. Okay, one item I want to fix a mistake I made earlier. When we were during the delegation section, citizen input, the board went into executive session. When we came back into open session after that, I failed to state for the public record that no action was taken and no vote was taken during executive session. However, we did request the superintendent to give the board an update at the next meeting on December 16th in executive session on that parental concern that was raised. I apologize for that error at the time, and I want to correct it now. Okay. Is there any items that board members would like to have on the agenda for the next meeting?
So not necessarily for the next meeting, but unless anyone on the board objects, if the school closures are approved by the state at a future meeting, I would like to request that Mr. Barton put an item on the agenda for us to discuss the possibility of allocating special funds from the savings of those closings towards academic achievement that we would not usually have in the schools that they're moving into. So for instance, allocating special funds towards Aurora and towards South to ensure that transition in the educational. So I would like that to be something that we take up for consideration. But again, obviously we want to wait and see what goes on with the state unless anybody else on the board objects.
Thank you, Mr. Kisner. Any other items for the next agenda?
Talk about the bus the last time.
I'm sorry, because I'll cut it from.
Okay, sorry. And then I know we mentioned exit interviews to find a formal way to pinpoint issues that we have within the system, to figure out why people are leaving our county, how we can promote our county and keep our kids in county to the best of our abilities.
Mr. Bankett, do you think at the next meeting you could bring like some sample questions to start to kick that off? Like if anything you've already been thinking
Yeah,
of?
sounds good.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for a long day.
Move we adjourn.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kisner. Okay, seconded by Mr. Hovatter, so we have a motion and seconded to adjourn. Is there any discussion? Call the vote.
Vote is open. Motion passes 5-0 at 8:47.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you to Roseburg School, and thank